I do, folks. How you doing? Just a quick one. Quick straighten of the cap there. Is it straight? There will do. We're going to go on to NHS today because I've had some first-hand experience, and most of you know I've got a dicky ticker, and it's been dickying up again. And Divvy Bogger here ended up finding himself in hospital again, and they've been inside my heart again. So that's 6 times now they've been inside my heart and still fucking ticking, so they ain't killing me yet, are they? Anyway, I thought, as I've got some real first-hand experience now, lots of people have been turned away from hospitals and such like that, lots of genocide talk. I myself have accused them of genocide, and I do stand by. They are a party to genocide. They have acquiesced from a lot of folks that needed their help. They didn't give, and a lot of folks are dying and have died because of them. I also believe that there is a certain level of, let's call a spade, murder within the corporation at a high level with old folks. It is sad, it is unfortunate. We've seen it too many times. But however, I can put some straight talk and some reality to the situation now with my first-hand experience. Now what I see is most folks getting turned away at like accident and emergency level. There's some compartmentalisation going on in there, whereas you've got to fit certain criteria to get past that point, and 99% of people are just getting sent home by that. That's where they've got guidelines, the nurses there, I think they've got a bit cold to it, and they won't go into the discussion because I think deep down inside they know that they're wrong, so they shut down and they get quite nasty about it straight away, quite quick if you push them at that point. But at that point there, where it's triage, which is what they're doing basically, it's almost like a military triage, a very fast basic, what's up with you, don't go into it too much, and some things they must send upstairs, which was mine, which was a heart situation, serious one, get it sent upstairs. So once you get through that point, you get to almost like a waiting ward, I suppose. This is where they come with all the fuckery. They come round with all their tests and swabs and such like, the COVID one and the MRSA one and all such like that. There's nothing compulsory in this world. I do not consent. Straight away the echoes are up. Straight away, why? Why? I don't consent and I don't wish to discuss it. Why don't you wish to discuss it? Because that's my free will. Piss off, leave me alone, I don't consent. And that is the end of it. They walk away. There's nothing comes of it. I think one muttered, we'll have to, oh they did, she muttered, we'll have to treat you like you're positive then. I says, you don't have any consent for that fucker either. And that was it. End of. I'm trying to think, was it the next morning or was it a couple of hours? I'm not sure whether it was a couple of hours or next morning. I'm a bit foggy with it now. But I was taken to the cardiology ward, and business as usual up there. There's no visitors obviously, but other than that it was business as usual. Nurses were just nurses, everybody else was just who they are, no masks. They did tell you when you come into hospital, they tell you to put a mask on. Now I put mine straight onto my chin there, and no point all the way through the hospital did anybody, the nurses that were seeing me, nobody fucking said boo to me about it. Nobody even commented about it in any way, shape or form, and I just put it on my chin. Only when I was leaving hospital did the fucking bloke nurse who was carrying my bags basically to the door, he told me I must put it up, and I just says no thanks. I says I've got an heart situation, I need my oxygen. And he says no, it's policy. I says, well, policy don't trump law. They're into law in the world that tells me I must put this up, and they says they're into man alive that can make me do it. And he just shut up at that. So you don't need to get into the arguments. But one thing I did manage to do while I was in there, which was absolutely shocking to me, and I had a total change of tact on how I broached it, and I realised it is all just fucking psychology. It is psychology, and I'm not saying I'm the world's greatest psychologist, I'm just saying the psyche that I hit was bang on, it worked to treat. Because what I've noticed, if you say COVID's fake, bang, the records are up, you're in an argument straight away, and they're going to quote to you these bullshit numbers and tell you that it's about saving other lives, not your life, and this, that and the other, and you're being selfish and all that, and you get into all the bollocks that you're not going to win because they closed down, their minds have closed down. So I found it much better, and this was every single nurse and every single doctor, every single one of them I did the same thing to and got the same fucking response. I started off talking about how hard it must be with the wearing the masks all the time and protecting themselves from this COVID, and making out that there really was a fucking COVID, and they're all yeah in for that, oh they're fucking all for that. And then you say, but ain't it weird though how right at the start they're showing you them falling over and just dropping dead in the street, and they're like, I know, yeah. And then you say, and then the ventilators, everybody needed a ventilator but nobody does, and yeah, and you just go along them lines, dropping a few of them and you get them on side. And then in the end, what I ended it with at the end of every one of them, and it seems flu has totally disappeared. No cases of flu for the first time in 100 years since the Spanish flu. First year there's been no flu, and that finishes them every time. Every one of them is willing to talk to it. By the time you've run through a few points after you've accepted there's a COVID, you hit the flu, and then you just do a couple of fucking bullshits about the government and the shit they've been spouting, and I'm telling you something, they open up a treat. I had nurses and a doctor said to me, them clapping are not clapping for me, they're not clapping for us. I've had nurses and doctors speak of an agenda, but you just got to get them through it. You've got to get them talking about it rather than you talk about it. You've got to come from the angle that they want to hear to start off with, the angle of the agenda. You must come at it from that angle if you want a doctor or a nurse to go for it. And I'm just kicking myself that I didn't video it. But while I was in there, obviously I had other things on my mind, and me being a gobshite in any situation, I'm talking and I just can't shut up. I have to talk about it. But it was absolutely bizarre that I got every single one of them. And in all honesty, I don't really want to trap and publish doctors and nurses speaking honestly and openly when they really don't want to be doing that on the record. What I want them to do is to go away and have the discussions, which I must have initiated while I was in there. Must have. I didn't go about anything my usual way. Normally I'm a total and utter gobshite, but this one I stayed very, very smart all the way through it, and it allowed me to keep talking about everything all the way through without getting the negatives on it and without getting the shutdowns. So I do realise I've cracked onto something there, but maybe the condition of myself going in there with my whole world upside down and my ticker wonky again, maybe that put me on a different level as opposed to the usual gobshitey confrontational side. It kind of calms you down when your ticker's beating all funny. But it don't shut you up if you're a true gobshite. But anyway, in all honesty, I'm doing okay, and I got some really good news out of all this as well. So I'm going to go into a few other things that might give some insight into some things, and some things that are possible, I don't know, maybe, we'll see. Others will have opinions on it, I've got my opinions on it, and we'll get to that. But basically, what's going on with my ticker? Right, I'm going to run everybody through it so everybody's under no illusions, because I get so much fucking advice on what to do with my ticker, and it all comes from a really good place but a lack of insight into what's really going on with my ticker, due to what I'll put at this stage as a very interesting life I lived. By the age of 40, as an unwoken man, I'd abused my body. And also I've got my entire family history, heart problems, so I was probably pre-designed for it anyway. But anyway, at 40 years old, I had unstable angina. Now, it ended up with me, I couldn't walk up any sort of incline at all without what I know now to feel like sort of an heart attack. but only temporary. You stand still for a couple of minutes and it ebbs off, and then you do a few more steps and then it gets you again and stops again. And I lived like that for about 6 months, refusing to go to hospital because I hate hospitals. However, and to put it bluntly, I'm an horny fucker and nothing's ever stopped me, including that. And it used to revert my wife to tears, obviously me constantly clutching my chest, climbing off her, looking like I'm about to die. A couple of minutes later, climbing back on. Looking back now, it's so comical, and how I didn't die, I don't know. But I refused to go to hospital. I lived in Cyprus at the time. My wife ends up in absolutely hysterics one night. Hysteria, not laughing hysterics, hysterical crying. She was in tears. A horrible mess. And she says, look, I'm just waiting for you to fucking die here, and I know damn well you're going to die on top of me, and I'm going to have to push your dead body off me. Please go to fucking hospital. So okay, went to hospital in Cyprus. They put me on a treadmill, wired me all up. Within seconds I was having an attack. That was it. Oh my god, rushed into hospital. The very same day, they're inside my heart. And it was a fucking mess, basically. 2 arteries, you've got 4 arteries in your heart. Nurses will confirm this. One of them's only a little piddly thing. 3 major arteries. Basically, the little one was dead, gone, long gone, and just calcium, and no artery left. One of the major ones was gone by an occlusion. It's got right in the middle of it, almost like a wall built in the middle of it. Bizarre. I've seen it with my own eyes. But it's like halfway down the vein, there's just like a wall that blocks it. And then you've got the other 2 that were gone at the time. There was just a tiny little bit of blood getting through, which was just allowing me to basic function. As soon as my heart rate went up, it obviously shut down. There wasn't enough blood getting through. So what they did, they banged 3 stents in my 2 good arteries, or 2 working sort of arteries, and opened them back up. Obviously in time I ends up back in England, and last year I had an heart attack in August, September, something like that, and they took me in. It was another one, refused to go to hospital, but then eventually the missus is like, I'm ringing a fucking ambulance, I'm not having this, because the heart attack wasn't stopping. It ended up lasting for about 10 hours, it was going on for. But I was at the hospital probably within about, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. So they take me in, and what they did is banged a couple more stents in those 2 arteries. So I've got 5 stents in 2 fucking arteries. And a balloon apparently as well, which holds open an older stent, so opens back up an older stent that's recalcified. So basically I'm fired out from there, and they did tell me there was still quite a bit of furring in my arteries, and mentioned the possibility of opening up again that artery with the occlusion halfway down it. But what they determined is, because that artery feeds the bottom of the heart, and they can see that blood is coming in from the bottom of that artery, almost like it's going towards each other in the same artery, it proves that the blood is going into the bottom half of the heart, and it's found its own way around and compensated, basically. So they don't see any priority of doing that. Oh, they didn't there. So basically, with the extra furring that was still in the arteries, it was obvious that something was going to happen again. So a couple of months ago I found Linus Pauling with his lysine and vitamin C protocols. I take 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C and 3,000 milligrams of lysine on a daily basis. Now I'll go into that in a second. Actually, I'll continue with this, otherwise I'll forget where I'm going. So basically, they've told me this time round the arteries are actually squeaky clean, which they're really surprised at. So obviously I know that the lysine and vitamin C is actually doing exactly what Linus Pauling says it does. So I'm happy as a pig in shit with that. But what's happening? Why do I keep having these little heart attacks? Talking to the cardiologist, now the one that actually went in my ticker, that was a woman, and afterwards she says, I want to open up that occluded artery because that'll make a big difference to your life. I'm like, well, that's what I've been trying to get done actually, and that's the only thing I want done from a hospital is that. I'm working on everything else myself. She says, well, it takes 2 surgeons to do that, so it needs to be rearranged for another time. So that's what we want to do. So she fucks off. I go back to the ward. My chief cardiologist comes round and he starts talking about a pacemaker. I'm like, what are you on about a pacemaker? No. So I go back to this, hang on, that other cardiologist who's actually been in my heart now turns around and says, what I need is that opening up, which is what I've said I've needed and what you appear to be blocking me from. You're as big a block as the occlusion. Basically it's you that says no. No, I don't see any point. Anyway, we have a bit of blah 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 backwards and forwards because my free will is stronger, much stronger than their fucker, I guarantee. So eventually he has like a fucking Inspector Clouseau moment. Actually, hold on a minute. In fact, maybe there is a possibility. He says 1 in X amount of whatever, fucking hundreds of thousands. He says arteries actually work the opposite way around. He says if that's the case in you, that could actually be that side, which would mean that is causing the problem. So cha-ching ching. Finally, we're fucking getting somewhere. But see to the great lengths you have to go to stop them doing what they would naturally do when they're wrong. And I'm not saying everybody's fucking wrong in the medical profession. They do some great work, but let's face it, the doctors, the surgeons and such like, they're just getting the slave back to production. The nurses, I do concede and go back to my original thoughts. I've always thought they're angels. I have been wavering a little bit because they're a little bit complicit in this, which I'll go back into shortly. But anyway, so here's where I am at the minute. I'm all wired for sound. I'm fucking wired up to fuck. I've got a mobile monitor on me for a week. And this one's going to show them what's actually happening when it happens, and I'm forcing it to happen as well. And no medication. He says to me, you can stop taking all your medication for this week except for your aspirin. Just take your aspirin. Well, Willow Box aspirin, isn't it? So that's your natural one. So that tells me I don't really need any medications at all, so I can drop all medications now, which was the anti-platelets and the anti-rejection stuff from the stents and such like. They tell me I can drop them anyway, but they want to give me other shit, but no thank you. So here I am, wired up for this week. We'll see. That's going to tell them what happens when it happens, and that'll say whether there's a backward flow of blood or what the heart's actually doing. They'll be able to get a true picture on what's happening. So that's me. That's me. That's a bit of background into what's happening. So bless you all. I thank you all for your help and advice. And I don't say don't give it me. Advice is free. Whether you take it or not, it's always optional, is what I say to everybody else. Just don't bombard me with ideas that you've not looked into because you read on a meme or something somewhere, something about the heart, because mine's quite specific. I've not just got all my arteries wide open, I'm running unlimited arteries in the first place. But anyway, like I say, that's me. Now nurses, let's hit on to nurses slightly. I'm sure there's something I forgot I said I'd come back to, but maybe somebody will remind me if I don't get back to it. Nurses. It's a real shame to see what I'm seeing because they are angels, and you know when you get past that triage section, you get up to the wards, they are just doing what they do, and they're really good at what they do, and they really do give a shit. The nurses really do give a shit, and they're a good crack. How do they stay so fucking happy and jolly in the environment they're in when even their own fucking bosses are working against them constantly? I do not know. So got to tip my hat to that fucker. And like I say, they are really there for us, and I think they are the only genuine ones in the entire industry. I know the surgeons genuinely want to keep you alive, but they're following a certain protocol, and they proved it with me, because he says to me, your lifestyle and your ability to do what you want and your own expectations of this are immaterial for me. My only job is to keep that heart beating at any cost. He says, and that's the only thing that matters to me. He says, the condition of your life doesn't matter to me. Keeping that heart beating is my only job. The rest is down to others. So that kind of says it all. Where's the care? Where's the compassion? Now, I know black and white, yes, it can be like that, but my priority ain't keeping my fucking heart beating at all costs. You know, if my life is reverted to shitter than shit, and I can't get up out of bed and I have no way of enjoying any aspect of life whatsoever, what do I want to keep it beating for? I'm here for an experience, good, bad or indifferent. I'm not here to fight to keep it fucking dragged on in sufferance for as long as possible. What the fuck? Seriously? So it is fucked up, but in a way, in another way, I can sort of accept it, because here I am alive, and they've been in my ticker 6 times, and I probably or possibly wouldn't have been if they hadn't. So it's a catch-22 with surgeons. Doctors in surgeries, doctors' surgeries on the street, fuck them. I'm sorry, they're a bunch of cunts, they're big pharma whores. That's all I've got to say about them. They want to hear your symptoms, they want to tap it into a computer, and they want to prescribe you the medicine that fucking tells you. And it's not medicine, it's a fucking drug. They want to give you whatever that computer tells them. That's no doctor. I could do that job, you could do that job, any fucking one of us who can tap into a keyboard can do that fucking job. All you need is a password to their fucking computer, their program, and anybody can. So fuck all the years of training, it's all worth shit because they've sold out to the fucking New World Order and just pass you your poisons. But that's that. But hospitals, they're not operating as they should. 90% is empty. The wards, they still are doing shit. There was everybody on the cardiology ward, that was full, and I can honestly say nobody died while I was there, and lots of things were going through. I think there was 10 procedures the day before me. I was listed as the first the next day, but then I ended up being the third because 2 emergency ones came in. So you can't say they're not doing anything, because they clearly are, and here I am alive and ticking still. So here we go. My best news out of it is all Linus Pauling. I had a great discussion with a doctor about him, the cardiologist, who snorted down his nose and called him my favourite scientist. I said, he ain't my fucking favourite scientist. I said, I'll tell you what he is. I said, he's the bloke that's filling all the gaps that you're leaving. I said, I had to revert to my own due diligence when the NHS weren't fit for purpose and they weren't taking people in. I says, I've had 3 heart attacks, 2 of them totally untreated. I says, while all this bullshit's been going on. I says, so I had to revert to the internet. I says, and you'll scoff at that. I says, but that's where the information was. I says, and your angiograms just proved that that's cleaned my arteries up, because that's what I've been taking. Ah, yes, but you've been taking other tablets as well. I says, no, I fucking haven't, mate. I says, you've been prescribing them, I haven't been taking them. His fucking face. I said, look, it is what it is. I know you're not going to come off your training. I know you're not going to come off Big Pharma. You're not allowed to. I says, but just when you're sitting at home and you've got your own thoughts going through your head, don't dismiss all this shit. Do a little bit of research. I says, that much research with a mind like yours would open the world to you. It really would. Even though you can't practice it on your day-to-day business, I says, you could whisper it in people's ear on their way out. I said, if you knew damn well that you were going to change their lives for better. I said, because that's what you should be doing, not just keeping people ticking at all costs. I said, you should be improving lives. I said, but anyway, I did say to him, I do appreciate what you have done. I said, I'm not coming from an argumentative point for you. I says, you've got such a mind, you should know so much already that this is an indoctrinated system. I said, it's in the very word doctor. He said, I'm a consultant. I said, immaterial. I said, you know yourself, you're still indoctrinated. I said, but I really don't want to fall out with you. I said, you've been in my heart. I said, there's a chance you might be again. So anyway, that's that. Out of hospital, monitored up, like I say. What else was I going to say about? We've covered the COVID shit. Everything is by your consent, and when you remove your consent, nobody's tying you down. They was all fake fucking Facebook fucking videos and YouTube videos just to wind the truthers up. That was all bullshit. Nobody's pinning you down for a COVID test. Nobody's pinning you down for a COVID vaccination. It is all voluntary. Nothing can ever be mandatory. They can never ever mandate sticking something through your fucking body. They cannot force anything into your body, and I assure you they're really not even attempting to. They're really not. They do try a little bit of deceit, they do try a little bit of coercion, a bit of shaming, That's just people, unfortunately, in this world trying to do a good job. That's what happens within the police force, within any job. People kiss arse. They try to do the very best they can for the corporations as opposed to for the people, and that's where nurses are slipping slightly. But I suppose if they came back from literally everybody and says I ain't got a single COVID test, questions would be asked. But when faced with somebody who says no consent, they should just say okay and walk away. If you know, you know. But just remember, folks, maybe you'll have to say it 3 times. Maybe you'll have to put your foot down a little bit. But don't get nasty with it. Don't get shitty with it. I got borderline with it, but I was just assertive, I think. A little bit shitty, but it was because she was stepping up a little bit, so I did. They cannot and will not do anything to you without your consent. They cannot and will not ever do anything to you without your consent. You need to learn how you consent. That's the thing. As always, like many people are telling you at the minute, conveyance of language is all that's really going on. However, bust through it. Plain simple English, plain simple counting systems. You don't need to learn it all. You really don't need to learn their entire conveyance of language to avoid it. You just have to speak from your heart, speak your free will, let them know your free will. And if you think it's going to be an awkward conversation, you don't think you can out-talk them, all you really have to say is, I do not consent and I do not wish to talk about it. That's it. Why? Why not? I don't wish to talk about it. I don't consent. That is my free will. Leave me alone. End of story. End of story. You don't have to go any further than that. You don't have to get into an argument with them. You don't have to worry about them being better trained in their indoctrination to out-talk you because you haven't got all the answers in your head. Because that's all it is. People get bullied into situations. You haven't got all the answers in your head. They've got loads of spiel for you. So they spout the spiel, and because you haven't got the answers, you feel deflated, and somehow you feel that they've won. Don't allow yourself to feel them feelings. That's the negativity creeping in. You've got your free will. You don't have to explain yourself to anybody, ever. You don't have to explain yourself. So whenever the conversation's getting awkward, just end the fucking conversation. I don't wish to talk about it anymore. You don't have my consent. End of story. So anyway, folks, I hope that one clears a few things up, and I hope it helps. I still think I touched on something I was coming back to. Maybe I'll kick myself as soon as I press stop. But if anybody thinks about it, ask me. Maybe I'll do a little one, or maybe I'll write it in the comments. I don't fucking know. Maybe nobody gives a shit. It's just a fella having a babble, innit? But anyway, folks, love you all. Still ticking. Right, a disclosure. Yes, I've remembered what it was. A disclosure and a possibility. I haven't mentioned it to anybody. Well, no, I've mentioned it to a couple of close folks, and I haven't gone into it at all with anybody. And I think it was just foolhardy at the time to go into it. But I will go into it a little now, just for a couple of minutes. What started when this ticker shit started back up again about 3 months ago. I was seemingly doing all right, and then Davey, admin on Wonky World, he will attest to a little bit of this. I was on the telephone to him. He's over in America, and was having a chat, and I was in the man cave, and my missus came in to me and says, there's a police car down the back lane. Now, my back lane is about 3/4 of a mile of real serious dirt track, and it's nowhere to go. It's private land. There's nowhere there certainly wouldn't have any permissions, consents or anything to be there. So I cut the call short with Davey to chase him off, which was my intentions. I gets round to the front, says, throw me my car keys, and I stood staring at him. So we're staring at each other by now. She throws me the car keys, I chase them off down the lane, but they get out the other side of it before I get to them, so I'm not going to do a police chase on the roads, but I did chase them off the lane. I came back. Now that night I had 2 heart attacks. The next day I woke up, I had a 3rd heart attack, and above my eye here you see this bit of patch that's really thin on my eyebrow there. It didn't used to be. It came up in a big like bleb, a blister sort of thing, a hard blister though, not like a blister. The next day, So initially, my initial thoughts was, wow, they got me with something. Anyway, that's besides that, I just carried on paying attention to this. What happened the next day? After that day, the swelling went down and it just laid over like a very thin sort of scab, not a thick scab like this. It's almost like discoloured and dry skin sort of a scab, them very fine ones that you can just like rub off, but it couldn't rub off, and it was solid on there, and it stayed there. All in all, it's taken 3 months. It's just now at the point where there's hard skin just on the surface of it. If I scratch it, I can see flakes of it coming down over my eyes. So it's still hard surface there. It's not healed properly. But 3 months for a very, very fine scab with no explanation that came up about an inch long. What the fuck was that? So I presumed I'd been hit with something. Now, as folks who know me know, I'm doing a lot of paperwork, serving a hell of a lot of paperwork at governmental level. I'm freeing folks' souls from the Vatican, the Crown, bars, and I'm hitting every single side of the system with documentations at the minute. I'm hitting them hard, and I'm doing things that not a lot of folks have got the ability to do. I'm pissing a lot of people off. Now, was that an attempt to silence me, to scare me? I don't know whether it was to scare me or whether it was an attempt on my life, or whether it's just a fucking sheer coincidence the day I have these heart attacks and my heart problems resurface, all this come up. I'm still having the heart issues. They've gone in there and they can't actually find the issue in my heart other than the artery that was blocked all along when I wasn't having these issues. So is it more a physiological issue that's been caused by being zapped by something or hit by something? We do know that these sort of technologies were around in the 50s and earlier, and I'm sure they've advanced to the point of a laser now. So it's not out of the realms. I did serve documentation on the police for coming onto private property, trespassing and such like immediately, and the response I got was quite bizarre, and it really did leave me with the impression that the local police had no fucking inkling that any car was even in that area at that time. And it wasn't just the usual blag off bullshit which I see through all the time. It really did seem like a genuine response of like the check the records, and absolutely no police cars were in that area at that time, and they're categoric about that. And I do actually believe them, because the way it is, which tells me it was somebody from higher up using a police force, a police car or whatever, or maybe I'm imagining it fucking all, and like I say, this fucking thing just appeared coincidentally at the same time as my heart attacks. But there you go, that's what I'd forgotten to come back to. So hopefully we've got everything. That may seem a little bit wacky to a non-woken soul, but to anybody who is a targeted individual,